Hello and welcome back to the UCLA Bruins Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ferguson, writer for UCLA on SI. Today we're going to be taking a look at UCLA's 72-59 win over Rutgers in the third round of the Big Ten tournament. Everything that went down in this game, as well as kind of analyzing each player's impact throughout this one. But before we get started, I want to thank everyone right now who is listening, Apple Music, Spotify, or even YouTube. It all means a lot to me, and I cannot thank you enough. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. So entering this game, I wanted to see UCLA absolutely blow the door open. The Bruins have the talent. Earlier this season, I believe it was February 3rd when both teams met for the first time. UCLA would win by 32 points, I believe. Around that 30-point mark. It was a complete, blowout. And UCLA played probably one of their better games of this season. Entering, this game, Rutgers has, done some good things. Like had a close game to Michigan State earlier this season, or, after UCLA played them. UCLA is kind of an up and down. They were 5-4 following that game. So when these teams were going to meet, we knew it'd be a little bit closer. There's some added momentum for Rutgers. Obviously, they were able to win against Minnesota, a team who beat UCLA, and then obviously advanced to the third round. What I saw in this game, though, was probably exactly what I figured would happen. I kind of gave UCLA the benefit of the doubt. I thought, with how Dent's playing, Clark, all those players for UCLA, there was some momentum there worth mentioning. But again, this was just not the best game for the Bruins. My biggest takeaway, the biggest negative takeaway, if you will, UCLA shot 38% from the field. And compared that to Rutgers, they also shot 38% from the field. UCLA shot 23-60. Rutgers shot 22-58. That is not good if you are a UCLA fan or even a UCLA player. I don't see how this, it's a win. A tournament win is a tournament win, obviously, but this cannot be considered a win for UCLA. We obviously knew a neutral site would kind of, affect things, but we didn't think it would affect things that much. UCLA will not be able to get away shooting sub 40% from the field against, Michigan State. That's who they're playing tomorrow, or this is coming out today. So that'll be on Friday. So again, UCLA needs to figure out what their shooting struggles really stem from. There really weren't too many notable, miscues. I mean, the worst shooter of the night was probably Trent Perry. Donovan Dent shot 6 of 14. But again, there wasn't really one performance that really tanked this. It was kind of a team effort of them simply missing shots. I do want to say, though, UCLA was able to get to the line. Buchanan Jr. and Emmanuel Ogable, they had 4 personal fouls, so kind of getting the other team into foul trouble is something UCLA will be able to utilize. Against Michigan State, you want to force teams in uncomfortable situations, so I thought that is what UCLA was able to do well. They shot 13 more free throws than the Scarlet Knights, so again, that's kind of where the game was won. It was won at the line. I don't like seeing that, especially against a team of Rutgers caliber. But again, UCLA kind of had a break, neutral site. So these factors were kind of expected that they wouldn't come out, drop 30. Maybe now that they're more acclimated, they'll be able to be competitive with Michigan State. I mean, looking back at that game, I believe Michigan State, won by 30. UCLA looked terrible, a ton of drama surrounding that game. But I don't think this win is something that you can really carry. There's not really much momentum from this game that you can carry into that one. And that's what I wanted UCLA to achieve. But as we saw, they kind of failed to cash in on that. But going off of, player performances, players who I thought, really answered the call in this one, I'll kind of go down all of UCLA starters and mention some bench players, as they were kind of impactful in this one. Starting off, Trent Perry, 12 points, 2 of 8 from the field, 2 of 5 from the three-point line, went 6 of 7 from the line, had 4 rebounds and 4 assists. Shooting wise, not the best, but he was still able to make or show strides, rebounding and assisting. I like that from Perry because he has shown to be a very versatile player. Again, if he can start making these shots at a higher rate, I think UCLA will have a great scorer on their side. Three personal fouls. He was getting kind of, choppy in this one, but, that's fine. We want to see more physicality from the Bruins anyways. And I thought, Perry, all things said, just his shooting needs to get better. But I'm not worried. I think he'll turn it up against Michigan State. He definitely has the skill set and the abilities to, but we just need to see it. Again, kind of easier said than done. Donovan Dent, I think this is the first ever triple-double in Big Ten tournament history. 12 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists. He went 6 of 14 from the field. He missed his only three-point attempt. Didn't find the free throw line at all this game, excuse me. So, we know how Donovan Dent plays. He likes to crash to the rim. But, this game was a little bit differently. He didn't draw as much contact, clearly, which, is a good and kind of a bad thing. We know Dent can have these huge, scoring nights, but that kind of hinges on how much he's able to get to the line. He didn't really do that in this one. But otherwise, great performance from Donovan Dent. I loved how he played. 10 rebounds. That is something that you don't really see that often. And that is honestly something that UCLA as a whole can take and move forward with. Great performance, A+ for sure. I loved how he played. I want to see more of that moving forward. Eric Daly Jr., he had, an okay stat line, 10 points, 3 of 7 from the field, 4 of 6 from the free throw line, and 6 rebounds. He played 25 minutes in this one. A reason why he didn't play more, I think it's because Mick Cronin wanted to get Xavier Booker going a little bit more in this one. He had 24 points in the first meeting, shot almost perfect, 10 for 11. So trying to find his rhythm. Obviously, he didn't. We'll get to him a little bit later, but still, I think Eric Daly Jr. had a decent game. Not many complaints, with a 10-point game on decent shooting and 6 rebounds. I want to see more. Obviously, he is one of UCLA's cornerstone players. When he's not playing the best, that kind of, leaves it up to, anyone else on the team to really step up and fill his shoes, which I felt happened. I just want to see more offensively from the Bruins as a whole. Eric Daly Jr. is not to blame, but, he definitely didn't help that much. Next, Tyler Bilodeau. Obviously, Tyler Bilodeau is going to Tyler Bilodeau. He had 21 points, shot 5 of 11 from the field, 3 of 7 from the three-point line, 8 of 8 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds. He played 30 minutes in this one. What can you say? It's Tyler Bilodeau, all big, third team. I think, again, that's a little low for him. But overall, I think he played a great game. I want to see him, maybe take more shots. 11 shots for Tyler Bilodeau is a little bit low, but, 8 free throw attempts, that's also going to kind of, ease that wound. But, I like how he's playing, really attacking the paint. Again, I think they were just trying to put him in a role that Xavier Booker played in that first game where, he is a threat from all over the court, has that matchup in the paint. He's going to take it. I really liked how he matched up in this one. Really no complaints from Tyler Bilodeau. More shots maybe, but A+ for him too. I'd give him a B+ actually. I take that back because it wasn't really eye-popping. Tyler Bilodeau's expectations are set really high, so that's really all you can kind of give him here. Sky Clark. There's something going on with Sky Clark, and I don't know really what it is. He had 5 points, shot 2 of 7 from the field, 1 of 4 from the three-point line, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He also played, 30 minutes. So the opportunity for him to kind of make an impact was definitely there. He just really didn't take it. He is one of UCLA's best shooters when he's hot, but getting there has been a difficult task for Clark in these last couple of games. We really haven't seen him explode. We just know how good he is. Last year, even the year before that, Clark was a great postseason player for the Bruins. But like I said, there's a lot of things going on for UCLA, a lot of scores, a lot of players who are first option, who would be a first option on, Rutgers or a different team. There's just so much talent on this team. So maybe he's having a hard time kind of fitting in, learning the dynamic of this team. Because, if you miss, most of the season, that is going to definitely hamper your overall ability to be an effective player. I knew this was something to kind of watch out for when he returned from injury, that it would be hard for him to kind of just, plug and play go in, score 20 points, 15 points, whatever. I definitely knew it wasn't going to be the same as it was prior to his injury. And it all adds up, right? I mean, he's had a few games where I think he scored, 15 plus points. But, those were games where they were really trying to get Sky Clark's shot going. But now when that is not really the emphasis, they kind of just cut their losses. They're still going to have him as a starter because he is a threat. We know he is. By far one of UCLA's most, all-around great players. He can score when he wants to, but his defense is also something to keep an eye on. And again, I thought, how UCLA managed Rutgers was good. I mean, if you hold the other team to a 38% shooting night, obviously you're doing something well on defense. It's just the offense, right, in this game that struggled, but not a bad game from Sky Clark. We just want to see a little bit more from him. If I had to give him anything, it'd probably a C+. I hope he can find a shot soon because that is something that UCLA will definitely rely on, in these later rounds against, the better teams, right? Michigan State, they're going to need, or UCLA is going to need a player who can kind of go out there and really stretch the floor and create, matchup nightmares and just things like that. Kind of looking at the bench, overall, not much activity. Xavier Booker, 6 points. I mean, that's kind of what I thought he would probably put up. I didn't really expect him to put up 24, but just him being that threat that, Rutgers wants to keep an eye on, knowing what his capabilities against this team are. I thought he was kind of bottled up. He had 2 rebounds on the game. I'd like to see more. I mean, he played 15 minutes, so he definitely had opportunity there. But, if you're starting point guards getting 10, it's going to be harder to kind of find those boards. I want to see him get a little bit more minutes. I think he is a good player. He can score well when he wants to, again, kind of like Sky Clark. He's very up and down, but more so down for Booker. I mean, he's not known for his scoring abilities or his defense, really. He's just kind of that, big body you can kind of put in the paint, maybe mess up some tempos. But besides that, Booker not really that big of a threat. But I do want to see, him on the lead bench player for the Bruins make more of an impact. He's kind of that 6th man. Obviously, UCLA has other players on the bench who kind of fill that role, but it seems like Booker is kind of the guy who UCLA hinges more on when, the starters need to get some rest. Jamar Brown, 2.7 minutes. Brandon Williams had a great game. I thought he played 10 minutes, had 2 points. He also had 4 rebounds. I mean, 4 rebounds, 10 minutes. You can't complain with that. That's not a bad, stat line whatsoever. Maybe he gets more minutes in the next game. Maybe there's a switcheroo between him and Booker's minutes, but overall, not really too concerned about that. Eric Freeney, I really wanted to see him kind of go out here and get a lot more reps. I thought what he showed against USC, Nebraska, he had a couple of good games, building up to this one. I thought he was going to be more of an, emphasis in this game for sure. But, when you are, only up by like 10 for most of the game, it is kind of scary to, want to rely on, a freshman guard to kind of get the job done for UCLA. He's talented enough to do so. But again, you really want to get him the reps before, the actual tournament starts. And I thought this game was a perfect opportunity for that. And that's why I don't really think the Bruins really capitalized on this matchup when you kind of take everything into consideration. But yeah, just kind of looking down at all these stats, I mean, it's kind of all over the place. There's not really the good ones. Obviously Dent and Bilodeau had good games, but besides that, everything else felt pretty mundane. I really wish UCLA could have, again, really run up the score in this one. But I guess, the neutral site being a factor definitely halted some of UCLA's, production. I don't like that fact, but, it is what it is. UCLA has kind of struggled when they're not playing in Poly. We're kind of just taking a sneak peek at the Michigan State game. In another away game, UCLA is not coming off of a big win. Michigan State has a lot of rest. It's in Illinois, so it's obviously a little bit closer to, Michigan. So there is probably going to be a lot of Michigan State fans attending that game. So that's going to give, Michigan State kind of a pseudo home court advantage that UCLA really doesn't have. I mean, LA to Illinois is not a fun trip. It's cold. LA fans probably don't really appreciate that. I'm over on the West, and I did not enjoy my trip to Chicago. But that's besides the point. That's not really on UCLA. But again, just it's going to be, UCLA is going to be at a disadvantage in this game, not only seeding wise. Obviously, Michigan State has been great. But again, UCLA does not have the momentum or, the uncontrollable factors on their side. Do I think they win? I think they make it close. I think, UCLA is, more used to, that game flow, that game rhythm. Michigan State, has had 2 bye games. The tournament started, I believe, on Tuesday. And now, fast forward today, they're playing on Friday. So Michigan State's had that rest. Maybe they're not fully ready for this game. But what UCLA showed was that they're not really ready to, beat a team like Michigan State, cleanly. If they do, it'll be a dogfight. But just looking at the last matchup and this one, there's not many differences that I could really point out. I think UCLA, again, has been kind of up and down since. That consistency just has not been there for UCLA. But that's all I really have for today's podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's going to be an interesting, game tomorrow. I'll also kind of record my game recap of that one. But besides that, that's all I have. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. And again, Andrew Ferguson. And as always, 4 is up and have a good day.